again, Susan, and welcome to YouTube channel. So in this video, I'm going to be making you the auth.js monster. So which also means that I'm going to be sharing almost all of my knowledge in this single video. So in this video, we are going to be learning about the auth.js version 5, which is currently beta. But yeah, we're going to be learning about the auth.js version 5 along with next.js and sheds and UI. Okay, so we are going to be using both of them for like routing and also for UI. And we're going to be discussing like what is the auth.js and how to use that, what is the credential provider, the sessions, the cookies, the JWTs, and also the Google provider, the GitHub provider, and so much more. So before we getting into the actual content of this course, first of all, let's talk about the requirements for this course. So there are a few things that you have to know before jumping into this course. So here is my channel, and here you will find all of the courses which I'm about to show you. So first of all, like obviously you have to know the JavaScript, and then you have to know the TypeScript. So I have a complete course on a JavaScript and also on the TypeScript. You have to know React.js, also next.js. This course is optional, which is like advanced TypeScript and next.js and stuff like that. If you want to check it out, so feel free to check it out. But the main requirements for this course is you have to know the JavaScript, you have to know the TypeScript, and you have to know the React.js, Next.js, and this one is optional. So yeah, if you want to learn more content or if you want to check out just my projects, so you can go ahead and check out my entire projects, and here is my channel. So yeah, I'm gonna see you in the course in a few seconds. Alright guys, so now let me make a setup for a recording journey. So I'm going to go ahead and search for nextjs.org, and now let me just copy this command. And I'm going to open my terminal right here on my desktop. And now let me just place this command right here, hit enter. I'm going to give it the name of like my auth.pj for like my auth project. So TypeScript will be yes, ESLint yes, Tailwind CSS yes, src directory no, app router yes, and no. I want to go into that directory. So let's just use our cd and then my auth.pj. And now I'm going to use the code dot. So it's going to open my VS Code right here on that folder. And now the next thing which I want to do is that I want to do a bit of cleanup. So I'm going to remove this public folder from here. Now let me just go to the app, and I'm going to also remove this favicon, and I'm going to cut that from here. And now let me just remove that and replace that with these three components. So now let me just go ahead and go to the pages. Let's just remove every single thing, and I'm going to just rename that to home. Okay, so let me just rerun that by using npm run dev. And now let me just open that right here on the local host of 3000. Okay, so it's gonna open there right here for me, and we are now getting our home right here, which is amazing. So that's cool. But now I also want to make a setup for my database, which will be Mongoose. So I'm gonna just search for mongoose.js, and I'm going to copy that. But first of all, we are gonna have to create our .env file. So I'm gonna just write like .env and mongo URI, and it's gonna be equals to this URI. So I'm gonna copy that from here. Let me just copy that and now let me just place that right here, and it's gonna be a next, or auth testing would be fine. So I'm gonna just give it the name of like auth testing, and that's cool. But now the next thing which I want to do is that I want to install Mongoose in my machine. Now let me just use npm i mongoose to install that in my machine. So while it's doing that, I'm gonna create a folder right here on my root. I'm gonna give it the name of like lib, and inside this folder we are going to be creating db.ts. And this is how it looks like. So first of all, we have our db folder. Then inside this db folder we have our first of all we have our lib folder. Inside this lib folder we have our db.ts. So that's amazing. So I'm gonna grab my mongoose from mongoose. Okay, so yeah, now let me just create a function which will just connect to our database. So connect db, and it's going to be equals to our asynchronous function. And now inside there we are going to be using try and catch blocks, and for the catch block we are going to be using console.error. And now let me just provide my error, and it's going to be error, come on, error.message. There we go. And I'm gonna also just write like process.exit, and I'm gonna provide one right here, and the error should be just any error. Okay, and now for a try block we are going to be using await and mongoose.connect method, and we are going to be only connecting to our .env, which is mongo URI. So I'm gonna copy that, and I'm going to be using process.env and then mongo URI, and I'm going to have to provide our explanation mark. We are now telling our TypeScript that yeah, we know that this is going to be a string. Okay, so now let me just use console.log, and I'm going to just provide like successfully connected to MongoDB, and I guess that's going to be fine. So now let me just save my file, and finally we have to export there. So I'm going to be using export default of connectdb. There you go. And yeah, that was the section 1. Welcome to the section 2. So in this section we're going to be adding a pages. So the first thing which I want to do is that I want to go to the shadescene UI. Okay, so let me just go ahead and go to the shadescene UI, and this is how it looks like. So I'm gonna just search for like installation would be fine. So I'm gonna just search for that, and I'm gonna just click on the next.js right here. You already installed the in our machine, so I'm going to just copy this command right now, and now let me just install shadescene UI in my machine. Okay, so it's going to install there by using this command, which you can see right here. Let me just highlight there for you. So it's going to install our shadescene UI by using this command. So I'm going to just stick to this default one right here. You can choose this New York if you wanted to. So I'm going to just stick with this default, and I'm going to also choose this left right here, and yes. Okay, so it's going to install there. So while it's installing there, so we are going to be using a few things. So now let me just show you there. Okay, so we are going to be using the input, which looks something like this. So we are going to be using there for the forms. Now we would also need a label. So now let me just show you the label right here. Okay, so we are not going to be using this checkbox, but we need these labels right here. Okay, so we are going to be using them, and I'm going to also go to the button, and this is how we are going to be using the button. And yeah, this is how we are going to be adding there. I'm going to show you that in a few seconds. So we are going to be also going into the cards, and we are going to be using these cards right here as well. And finally we are going to be using the table. Okay, so this is how our table will look like. And yeah, so let me just install that in my machine. So the first thing which I want to do is that I'm going to copy this command, and now let me just expand that. So I'm going to remove this table from here. So the first thing which you want to install is the input. We also need the label, and also the button, and also the card drop down menu, and also the table as well. Okay, so what are we doing? We are now telling our shadescene UI, like this is how we are going to be telling our shadescene UI that we need this stuff. So what do we need? We need the input, we need the label, and also the button, card, drop down menu, and table component. So we want you to install that in our current project. So I'm going to just hit enter right here, and it's going to install that in this folder, which you can see right here inside these components. And inside these components we have our UI folder, and inside this UI, so it's going to add that right here. And here you can see we now successfully added all of these components right here by using the power of shadescene UI. Okay, so now the next thing which we have to install is the tabular react icons, or icons react, whatever you want to call that. And this is how you're going to be installing there. So now let me just hit enter right. So it's going to also install there, and now that's successfully installed. So what, it's time to add our first page right here. Inside this app folder we're going to be adding our register folder. Okay, so now let me just zoom in a bit. So we are going to be just writing register, and now inside there we are going to be using pages or page.tsx right here. So the first thing which I want to do is I want to grab all of the things that we would need for this project. So we are going to be importing first of all the input. From where we're going to be importing there from the UI input folder, which you can see right here. Okay, so I'm going to just click on there. So it's going to import this input component from this components UI, and this input right here, which you can see right here. This is a shadescene UI component which we just installed a few seconds ago. Okay, so we are now importing this input component. So that was the first thing. Now the next thing which you have to do is that we also have to grab the label from the component UI, and now finally we are going to have to grab the link. Okay, so I'm going to just grab the link from the next link. I guess that's going to be it for the importing. So now let me just use the RAFCE. I'm going to give it the name of like register, and it's going to be asynchronous component. So I'm going to just mark it as asynchronous. And now inside there, let's get into our register component. So I'm not going to be wasting a lot of your time by just writing all of their tail and CSS clauses. So I'm going to just copy and place it right here, and you should do the same. And you can go ahead and go to my GitHub repository, and you can like grab all of the styling if you wanted to. So now let me just write h2, and I'm gonna write like welcome to my shop or something, even though we are not going to be working with a shop. But this is just a form component, so I have to write something for that. Okay, so now let me just write a paragraph, and please provide all the necessary information right here. Okay, so now let's just save there. Underneath this paragraph we're going to be using our form. Okay, so now let me just write a form, and we're not going to be providing any action to that, not right now, but very soon. Okay, so now inside there we're going to have to create our div, and inside there we have to use our label. Okay, so now let me just use our label right here, and I'm gonna write like first name. Now underneath that, now let me just use our input component, and yeah, I'm going to provide ID to that. ID will be just a first name in lowercase, and I'm gonna also provide a placeholder of like Tyler, Tyler like that, and I'm gonna also give it the type of text, and the name will be just a first name. There you go. Okay, so I guess I'm gonna just duplicate there a few times, or I'm gonna just duplicate there like one time. So that was the first name, and this is going to be the last name, and let me just change that a bit quickly. Now underneath this div, we are going to be creating our label one more time. So I'm gonna just write like email address, or DRESS, and I'm gonna also provide the input right here. Let's just remove that from here, and I'm gonna provide the ID of email, and also the placeholder will say like project hem@fc.com. It's just a placeholder. You can specify like anything that you want, and email, and then finally we have a name of email as well. So this is going to be for our email, and now I'm gonna just duplicate this. I'm gonna just duplicate that, and instead of an email, I'm gonna change that to the password. Okay, so we have our password right here, and I'm gonna also change this one to password. And now finally underneath this input, we're going to be creating our button right here. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna just say like sign up, and then this HTML entity, which will be ampersand, and then RARR, and then close it. Okay, so let me just save this file. Now let me run there by using npm run dev. Let me go to the register page. So I'm going to write register, and here you can see we are now getting our register. This is looking awful, I know that, but now let me just style that a bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and style that. Let me just place this styling right here, and I'm gonna also place it right here for the paragraph. Let me provide a bit of margin for the y-axis, and for this div, we're going to be just providing a bit of styling like that. And this label will be just a first name. This one will be a last name. This one will be an email. And finally, this one will be a password. Okay, so we have a password. And finally, for this button, we're going to be adding crazy amount of styling. Okay, so I'm going to just place that right here. And now let me save my file. And here you can see we are now getting everything, but that's not looking that cool. Oh my god, that's looking awful. I don't remember how I styled that, but I'm going to just wrap that with a flex container. So I'm going to use a flex and then the flex column, and let's just cut that from here and place that, save my file. And yeah, the first one is looking kind of cool. And now let me use a flex and flex column one more time, cut that from here, and let me place that right here. Okay, and yeah, I guess that's looking better. Okay, so we have a class name, margin for bottom will be set to 2. Save my file, and I'm going to also copy that. Let me place that right here as well, save my file. And yeah, I guess that's looking better, but I'm gonna also put a bit of spacing right here for the final one. So let's just use our class name, margin for the bottom will be set to 5. Save my file, and yeah, I guess that's looking better. Alright, so this is our basic register page. I forgot one thing. So underneath this button, we're going to be also providing our paragraph, which will say already have an account ? And if you already have an account, so I mean, like, if you don't have an account, so then you want to just link it with the login page. And for the href, we are going to be passing our login page, which we are going to be creating in a few seconds. And yeah, that's looking better, but I'm gonna also put a bit of spacing right here. So I'm going to place the styling, so let's just save that, and I guess that's looking better. Yeah, that's looking better. So if I click on that, it's gonna redirect us to the login page, which we don't have right now. So you know what, let me just create that right here. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and go to my app folder, and inside there we are going to be creating our login and then page.tsx. I'm gonna be using RAFCE. I'm gonna give it the name of like login, and now I'm going to remove this login from here. Inside this div, let me provide my form, and we're not going to be passing any actions to that, not right now, but very soon. Okay, so we are gonna have to grab our label, and we are going to be grabbing that from our components. I mean, like, from our sheds and UI. And for the HTML4, we are going to be passing the email, because this is the email label. So email address, ADDRESS. But first of all, let me grab that. Okay, so we are going to be grabbing that from our sheds and UI. Let me provide the ID, and ID will be email, and also the placeholder will say like project hem at fc.com. And now let me provide the type, and the type will be email, and also the name will be set to email. Okay, so that's cool. Now let me just save this file, and here you can see we are now getting our email right here, which is amazing. Which is not amazing, but we're gonna take care of that in a few seconds. Okay, so let's just duplicate the email, and also let's just duplicate the input and also the label, and I'm gonna change that to the password. So let's just change that to the password. Underneath that, we are going to be creating our button. So let's just create our button, which will just say login and then ampersand, and then we have a RARR and close there. Okay, so let's just save our file, and this is how our UI looks like. But now let me just style that a bit. I'm gonna provide the styling right here to the div. I'm gonna also provide a bit of margin for the y-axis of 8 pixel, and yeah. And finally, let me add a lot of styling to this button right here. So let's just add that, save my file, and this is how my input field looks like. It shouldn't be 3 hours, it should be just a 2 hours. So let's just save that, and now we are getting our arrow. And I'm gonna also provide a class name of margin for the bottom will be set to 6. And yeah, I guess that's looking cool. Now underneath that, we are gonna have to create our paragraph, which will just say if you don't have an account, so then you want to link you to or register page. Okay, so then you have to go ahead and register in our applications. Now let me use our href, and it's gonna go to the register. Okay, so let me grab my link from my next link, and yeah, let me just style that a bit. Save my file. Underneath this paragraph, we're gonna have to paste this separator right here, so which looks something like this. This is just a div, but now we are just styling that a bit. This is going to be just a perfect line. So let's just save that, and here you can see we are now getting this line, which you can see right here. You don't have to do that if you don't want to do that, but yeah, I like to do that, so that's why I'm keeping it. We have to create our section, and we are going to be providing a bit of styling to that, like flex, and flex will be set to column, and also spaces will be set to space for the y-axis will be set to 4. And now we are going to be providing our form, and inside this form we are not going to be providing any actions, not right now. Let me provide my button, which will just say GitHub. Okay, so you know what, instead of a GitHub, first of all we have to go into this button, and we have to just use our icons, icon brand GitHub. Okay, so GitHub, which you can see right here, we are now grabbing that from this tabular icon, which we've already installed in the beginning of this video. Let me just close this up, and underneath there I'm gonna also put a span, and for this span I'm gonna just say like GitHub right here. Let me just style that a bit. So I'm going to just first of all style this button. Let me provide the styling to it, and I'm gonna also style this icon as well. So let me just provide a bit of styling to this icon, and finally let me just style this span. Okay, so let's just provide a bit of styling to this span. Save my file, and remove this arrow. Save my file, and this is how it looks like right here. Now what I want to do is that I want to duplicate this entire form. Okay, so now let me just select there and duplicate there, and here you can see I have the copy of that. And instead of a GitHub, I'm gonna just change that to like Google. I'm gonna also change this icon to like Google icon brand Google. Okay, so I'm gonna just choose that, save my file, and here you can see we are now getting our Google right here, which is amazing. So yeah, we are now totally done with our login form, and we are now also totally done with our register form as well. We are now totally done with the login and register pages. So now I'm going to be creating a private pages. Okay, so I'm going to just give it the name of like private. You don't have to do that. You can give it the name of like admin. You can provide like secure. You can give it any name that you like, but in my case I'm going to just stick with this private right here. Now inside this private folder we are going to be creating our dashboard. So dashboard, or in lowercase dashboard, and I'm going to just create my page.tsx inside this dashboard. Okay, so now let me use my RAFCE of dashboard, save my file, and now let's get into it. I'm gonna just remove this dashboard from here, and I'm gonna provide a flex, and minimum height will be set to screen. And now inside there we are going to be creating our flex, and it's going to be set to 1, and then we have our BG gray of 100, and we also have a dark will be set to BG gray of 950. Okay, so that's cool, but now let me just provide my paragraph of 6. I'm going to also pass the grid, and also the gap will be set to not 4 but 6. And now inside them we are going to be also providing a grid, and then for the medium screen we are going to be passing the grid columns of 2, and for the large screen grid columns will be set to 4, and then for the gap I'm going to specify 6 right here. Okay, so that's cool, but now inside them we're going to have to pass our card. Okay, so let's just pass our card, which we are now already grabbing, and now inside there we have to pass our card, which we are already grabbing from our sheds and UI. Okay, so we have to close them manually just like that. We have our card right here, and now inside this card we're going to be passing our card header. Okay, so we also have to grab that right here from our sheds in UI. Why it's not doing? Okay, we are now already doing that, and I'm gonna also provide a bit of styling to this one as well. So now let me just pass my classes like flex, and flex will be set to row, items will be set to center, and justify will be set to between, and pairing for the bottom will be set to 2. And now inside that we are going to be also passing our card title, and let's just close that right here. And I'm gonna also pass the class name of text will be small and font will be medium. Okay, and it's gonna just say like total revenue. Now underneath this header we are going to be creating our card content. So we have our card content. Let me just close them, and I'm gonna provide a div. Yeah, I'm gonna just go with a div, and let's just provide some sort of amount like, and let me just style that a bit. Let me provide the styling right here, and I'm gonna also provide a paragraph, and which will just say like month. Okay, yeah. Cool. Let me also style this one as well. And what I want to do is I want to go ahead and go to my not dashboard but private, and then dashboard. And here you can see we are now getting our card right here, which is looking amazing. So what I want to do is I want to duplicate this card like a few times, maybe 2 or 3 times. Let me just select that 1 and 2. And we're now getting there like 3 times. I'm gonna also duplicate there one more time, like 4 times. And yeah, I guess that's looking cool. And I'm gonna also change these values, and you can change that to like whatever you want to change there. And I'm going to go ahead and change there very quickly. I'm gonna save these changes, and the second one I change that to a subscription. Third one will be for the sales, and the final one will be for the active. Okay, so yeah, if you want to change it to this value, you totally can, like nothing is stopping you. But if you want to change it to something else, like I don't know, maybe payment or receipts or something like this, you can totally do that as well. Okay, so now underneath this card and also underneath this div, we're going to be creating yet another div. I'm going to just give it the class of like grid, and also the gap will be set to 6. And now inside this div we are going to be passing craziness. Okay, so now let me use my card one more time and close that. Inside this card we're going to be passing our card header. Let's just close that. And yeah, inside this card header we're going to be also providing a card title, and let me just close that as well. And yeah, I'm gonna just say like recent sign-ups, and let me just style this card header before I forget. And I'm gonna also style this card title, and let me just style that. Okay, so if I save my file, here you can see we're now getting our recent signups. Underneath this card header we're going to be passing our card content. Okay, so card content, and now let me just close that, and let me pass my table. And inside this table we're going to be passing our table header. And now inside this header we're going to be passing our table row. Okay, and I'm gonna also close that. And let me just pass my table head in this case, and not header, table head. There you go. I guess we didn't import that, so we're gonna have to import this one and also this table as well. Okay, so we have to import them. And now inside there we are going to be passing first of all the name, then we have to pass the email, then we have to pass the plan, and then we have to pass the date. Okay, so if I save this file, and here you can see we are now getting the name, email, and also the plan and date. Table header, we're going to be passing our table body. So table body, grab them and close them. Now we are going to be passing our table row one more time and close that. And finally we have to pass our table cell and John Doe for the first user. We're gonna have to grab that first of all. Okay, so we have to write a table cell, save my file, and let's just duplicate that to the John at example.com, and let me just duplicate that and pro. And now let me provide a date of like 2024 4 month. and I guess, yeah, 15 date or something, or 16 date maybe. And this is our first user. So you know what, let me just duplicate that a few times. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to just duplicate this table row a few times, like maybe 5 or 6 times. So this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if I save my file, and here you can see we're now getting all of that do right here that much time. If you want to change this data, you totally can, but I'm not planning to, because this is going to be just our private dashboard which we want to protect. That's it. Okay, so if you want to change these values, you are more than welcome to do that. And that wraps up our dashboard component. So next we're going to be working with the setting component. So you know, let me just create that right here. So we have our settings, and then we have our page.tsx, which is also inside this private inside this private folder. We have our settings and also the dashboard. So we are going to be protecting both of them. So you know, let me just use my RAFCE of settings right here. Okay, so save my file. Alrighty, so now let's get into it. So the first thing which I want to do is that I want to make it as a container, and max will be set to auto, and pairing for all around will be set to 4. And now inside that we're going to be creating our h1, which will just say users. And now I'm going to also put a table right here, just a regular table. And now inside that we have to pass our t head, and then we have to pass our tr, and then we have to pass our th, which will just say like first name. And let me just duplicate there. We have a last name, and then finally we have our action right here. We are going to be performing some sort of an action which you will see in a few seconds. Now underneath this t head, we're going to be passing our t body. And now inside this t body, let me just pass a comment here. We will render the users and would be able to delete them. Okay, so that's coming up very soon. But you know what, first of all, let me just style them. Text will be set to Excel, font will be bold, and margin for bottom will be set to 4. I'm going to also pass the class name of full and rounded shadow. Let me provide a BG of gray 100. Text will be set to left, and let's just duplicate there like a few times by using pairing for all around will be set to 2. And I'm gonna go ahead and go to my settings right here, and we are not getting anything. That's because we don't have any users right here. So yeah, that's why we are not getting anything. So that's cool. But now the next thing which you have to do is that we have to take care of the navbar. So now inside this components folder, we're going to be creating first of all the auth folder, and now inside there we have to create our navbar.tsx. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's gonna be fine. So I'm gonna use like RAFC of navbar, but I'm gonna just change that to the nav. We are gonna have to pass our link. Let me grab that from the next link, and let me pass my href of the home, which will just say like my fancy website. There we go. So now if I save that, and I'm gonna also have to pass that right here inside our layout. So first of all, we have to grab that by using import navbar, and let me just put that above, copy that. Let's close that, save my file, and here you can see we are now getting over my fancy website which is amazing. So now underneath that we're going to be passing our UL. We're going to be styling that in a bit, but first of all let me just provide my li, and it's gonna just say link, and for each link let me just provide like a login. First of all, come on, log in, there we go. And I'm going to also provide a class name of hover when somebody hover over there. So we want to change the text to gray of 400, and the first link will just say login. Save my file, and I'm going to have to duplicate there like a few times. Okay, so this one will be for the login. Then we have our registered, then we have our dashboard, and we also have our settings. Or you know, we're not going to be working with the settings, not right now, but we will take care of that in a few seconds. So that's cool. And if I save my file, and here you can see we are now getting our login. Okay, so the first one will be for the login, the second one will be for the register, and let's just change that to register, and the third one will be for the dashboard, and change that to the dashboard. Save my file, and we are now getting different links. Underneath this li, we are going to be creating a nested form inside there, because we are going to be passing a server action. We are going to be passing that a bit later, but not right now. But now inside there we are going to be also passing a button which will just say the type of, you know, let me just grab this button right here because we already installed that. So now let me just grab that, and let me provide a type of submit to that, and the variant will be set to ghost. Okay, so ghost, there we go. and it will just say like log out, save my file, and that's it. Here you can see we're now getting our logout button and also these links. But you know what, let me just style that a bit. Let me first of all style this navigation. I'm gonna also style this logo, so which will just say like text of Excel, and the font will be set to bold. Okay, so if I save my file, I'm gonna also style this UL as well. So now let me just paste there, and here you can see this is how it looks like. I know it looks awful, but we will take care of that a bit later. Okay, so if I click on the login, so it's gonna brings us to this login. If I click on the register, so it's gonna just brings us to register. Let me just click on the register one more time, and then the dashboard. Okay, so dashboard, we have to take care of that. It should be a private and then dashboard. Okay, so now if I refresh there, let me just click on there one more time, and here you can see it's gonna brings us to this dashboard right here. You can also click on the logout and nothing will happen because we did not add any auth and nothing right here. Okay, so yeah, that was it about for the pages, and now let's get into the actual auth.js. So now we are totally done with the pages like login, register, dashboard, and also the settings. Okay, so next we have to take care of how we are going to be creating a user and then how we are going to be logging in that user. Okay, so the first thing which we have to do is that we have to create a model or schema or whatever you want to call that for the user. So what I want to do is that I want to create a folder of models. You can give it like any name that you like, but in my case I'm going to just give it the name of like models, and now inside there we are going to be just creating our user models.tsx or ts. Okay, so first of all we are going to be importing mongoose from mongoose, and now let me just create a user schema, schema. It's going to be equals to a new mongoose and then schema. And now inside there we are going to be passing the first name, and the first name will be set to type of string, and also it should be required. Okay, and now let me just set that to true. We would need the first name, we would also need the last name, and we would also need the email, and we would also need the password as well. But instead of providing a required for the password, we are going to be using select, because we are not going to be storing the user password whenever like the new user login by using the Google provider or the GitHub provider or OnlyFans provider, which we are not going to be implementing. But yeah, you know, I'm going to show you that a bit later. But first of all, we would need the user first name, last name, email, and also the password. And let me just show you that. So if I go to the register, so we would need the user first name, last name, email, and also the password. So we will need all of this information from the user, and we will need something called the role whenever we are protecting our routes. So whenever we are protecting the routes, we'll need the role. Okay, so I want you to just keep that in mind. So whenever we are protecting our route, so we will need this role right here. Okay, so now let me just pass the type of string, and the default value I'm going to specify to the user right here. Okay, so then I'm going to also specify the image, and the type will be set to string, and I'm going to also pass like auth provider ID. This is something that you haven't seen before, but I'm going to explain that a bit later. So now let me just save that, and this is not going to be required because some user will provide their images and some user will not. Okay, so this is totally optional. If you want to provide your image, you totally can. We will store that, but if you don't want to provide your own images, so you don't have to. Then we have auth provider ID, and this is going to be coming from the Google and the GitHub providers, and there are a lot of providers such as like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and we are not going to be discussing all of them, but we are going to be only discussing the Google and also the GitHub providers. Okay, so now let me just save that. So this is going to be our user schema, which you can see right here, and finally we have to export const of user, and it's going to be equals to mongoose.models. If we already have the user, so then use that user, but if we don't have the user, so we have to use the mongoose.model, and we have to create our user right here. Okay, so by using the user schema which we've already defined. So now let me just save my file, and this is how we are going to be defining the schema and also the model for our user. So now let me just close that. All right, so now we are totally done with how we are going to be creating a user schema. The next thing which you have to do is that we have to go ahead and make a setup for or authentication. So I'm going to just search for the auth.js.dev. Now a lot of you will say like, Hussein, why are we using auth.js instead of a next-auth? Because we are working with the next.js project. So why aren't we using the next.js? So you know what, let me just show you this. If I just search for the next auth. Okay, so I'm going to just click on this first link right here. And what are they saying? Let me just zoom in a bit. Next.js is becoming the auth.js, which is this one right here, which we are going to be learning throughout this course. And we are now creating authentication for the web, everyone included. You are looking at the Next.js 4 version documentation. For the new documentation, go to the auth.js.dev, which is this one right here. So if I click on that, so it's going to just brings us to this auth.js.dev, and this is the version 5. Okay, so now let me just close that, and I'm going to just click on the getting started button right here, and let's get into it. Okay, so we are now working with the we are now working with the next-auth version 5. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to just click on this installation right here. You can learn more about that if you wanted to, and trust me, their documentation are horrible, like more than horrible. You cannot even make a setup, like the actual setup of credential, by using their documentation. Like, let me just show you that. If you go to the credentials, and this is their documentation, which is super awful. But you know what, I'm gonna just go ahead and go to the installation page, and I'm going to just install that right here. So I'm gonna copy there, and I'm going to just stop my server right here first of all. And now let me just install by using npm install next-auth and beta. Okay, so I'm going to just hit enter right here. So while it's installing there, the next thing we would need is some sort of a secret. So we are going to be storing our secret inside our .env file. So you can also create your secret by using the npx auth secret, but that secret will be stored inside your Vercel ID, which I already provided. So I'm not going to do that. If you want to do that, you totally can. And the alternative way is to use this OpenSSL, but I'm not going to even use this one as well. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to just copy that. And now our auth.js is now successfully installed. So now let me just remove that. I'm going to go ahead and go to my .env file right here, and I'm going to just place this one right here, and I'm going to provide my own, because I know this one is secure and this is not going to be showing up in anywhere, not in the Vercel, nowhere. Okay, so yeah, this is how you can provide like you can provide like anything that you want, but in my case I just specified this right here. And now let me just close that. So this step is complete, and also this step is totally complete. So now the next thing which you have to do is that we have to create our auth.ts file inside our root. If you are using a src directory, like if you have some sort of a src directory, and then inside their src directory you have some sort of a app, so you're going to be creating your file inside this src directory. But in my case, I am not using the src directory, I'm using the app directory. So I'm going to have to create it right here. So I'm going to just create a file, and now let me just give it the name of like auth.ts, and this is how I'm going to be creating my auth.ts file right here inside my root. Okay, so now the next thing which you have to do is that we have to copy every single thing and place there. Save my file. So what are we doing? You know what, let me just remove every single thing and give it the name of like something, and it's going to be equals to our next-auth. And now we are providing our providers right here. So what we are basically doing is that we are now destructuring something from our next-auth. This next-auth is a huge thing. Like, it has a lot of methods, a lot of properties, and a lot of different kind of things. So the one we are interested in is that we want to destructure the auth. We also want to destructure the sign in, the sign out, and also our handlers. And here you can see we have their handlers right here, and our handler will be a get and also our post right here. Okay, so that's why they recommend to destructure the handler, the sign in, sign out, and also the auth. Okay, so I'm going to just go back. Let me just go back, and this is what we are doing right now. So what we are doing is that we are now destructuring the handlers, the sign in, sign out, and also the auth from the next-auth right here. And now inside this next-auth, we are providing something called the providers, and we're going to be learning about the providers a bit later. But I want you to keep in mind that we are going to be passing something inside our next-auth, and then we are going to be just destructuring these 4 things from it. And finally we are now exporting that. So this is what we are doing inside our auth.ts file. They are suggesting to create this path right here. Inside this path we have to pass our handlers, which we are already destructuring right here from our next-auth. And then we have to also destructure like even further. We have to destructure the get and post, which I already show you. So you know what, let me just show you that once again. So I'm going to have to copy this API right here. I'm going to go ahead and go to my app, and now if I just create a new file and place there and hit enter, so what are we doing? First of all, we are now creating our auth folder, and now inside this auth folder we are now creating a dynamic route, and now inside there we are now creating our route.ts file right here. I hope you guys already know all of that stuff. And if you don't, you can go ahead and watch my entire Next.js course. Okay, so I'm going to just copy that and referring to the auth we just created. So I'm going to just remove that from here. And the first thing which I want to show you is that where in the world is this handlers coming from. So if I go ahead and go to the auth, so we are now destructuring these handlers from our next auth right here. Okay, so these handlers are now coming from the next auth, and then even further we are now destructuring the get method and also the post method from these handlers. So if I just click on there, and what are we getting? We are now getting there, but if I click on there one more time, so here you can see we are going to be getting our anyways, I already show you that. I kind of lost that. I kind of lost it there, but I already show you that. So yeah, we are now further destructuring the get route and also the post route from these handlers right here. And finally, they are suggesting to create a middleware file. So now let me just also create that inside or root. Okay, so we are going to be creating that right here. So if I just create a new file, give it the name of like middleware.tsx, or not tsx but ts, I'm gonna copy that and place it right here. So what are we doing? We are now importing our auth, and we are now renaming that or providing an alias for that as a middleware. You don't have to do that, but if you want to do that, so that's what they are suggesting in the documentation. Okay, so yeah, we are now grabbing this auth from our next auth right here, which you can see right here. So we are now destructuring that, and then we are now importing that inside our middleware.ts file, and we are now renaming that to the middleware. So this is what we are doing right now. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the entire setup of auth. Next, we are going to be learning about the credentials provider. So I already recorded this section, but at the middle, my mom came in and she asked me, Hussein, buy some milk. So I went to the store and bought some milk, and now I came back. Let's get into it, baby. Let's get into it. All right, so I was talking about that. We are going to be learning about something called the credentials, but we're not going to be learning about the credential not right now. First, we have to learn about how we are going to be registering the user. First of all, we are going to be taking the user first name, last name, email, and password. Then we are going to be registering that inside our database. And yeah, you get the idea. So now let me just zoom in a bit. So how in the world we are going to be doing that? There are two ways to do that. The first way is to use the API, but we're not going to be using that because we are going to be using something called the action. So server action. So now let me just create a folder. I'm going to give it the name of like action, and inside this actions folder, I'm going to create a user.ts actions file. Okay, so what are we doing? We are now creating our action folder, and inside this action folder, we have our users or user.ts file. So I'm going to just mark it as what do we call it, like use server. And now let me just save my file, go back. And the first thing which I want to do is that I want to create a function. I'm going to give it the name of like register. So const register, you can give it the name of like register user, but I'm going to give it the name of like register, and it's going to be an asynchronous function. It's going to take the form data and the form data from the for the types. Okay, so that's there. But now let's suppose here is the question: how in the world I'm going to be getting this value? I mean, like the value from this input, also from this input, and how am I going to be passing that to this register server action? And the answer is we are going to have to use this form data. So now let me just use like const first name is going to be equals to the form data, and now we have to use the get method on there. And now this get method will take one argument, and we're going to be passing the name which we are already specifying right here. So now let me just go back, and here you can see for the first user, I mean like for the first name, we're now providing the name right here, and the name is first name. For the second input, we are also providing the name, and which is set to last name. Then we have the name, email, and finally we have the name of password right here. So this is how we are going to be selecting that. So now let me just provide a first name in lowercase because I already set there as a lowercase first name right here, which you can see. So that's there, and I'm going to mark it as a string. And now let me just duplicate that, but before I do, I'm going to just log that to the console. So like first name, let's just save that, and finally we have to export this register right here. So if I save my file, and now let me just go ahead and provide that server action to this form. So we are going to be using this action, and now let me just provide my register right here. Back to the PHP, baby, back to the PHP. Okay, so this is how we are going to be passing the server action for our form, and we are now grabbing that. Let me just show you that we are now grabbing that from the action and then the user right here. So let me just run that because my mom interrupted, so I'm gonna have to rerun that once again. and I'm going to copy there. I'm going to open the incognito window. I'm going to tell you why I opened the incognito window in a few seconds. Okay, the reason I open the incognito window is that whenever I type something inside there and whenever I click sign in, I get this autocomplete like all the time. Here you can see that, and I don't like that. Sometimes I provide my own actual real credentials, and whenever I'm recording the video, all of the people can see my real credentials, and I don't want that. Okay, so I'm gonna have to open my what do we call it, incognito tab, and you don't have to do that. So I'm gonna go ahead and go to the network panel. And what am I doing? First of all, let me just check. Okay, so we are logging this first name to the console, so I'll just write like Hussein, and we can specify like anything we want right here inside that doesn't even matter, but we are now checking the result of this first name right here. And now if I click on the sign in, and here you can see we are getting this register right here, which means like we specify this Hussein right here inside there. But if I open my terminal, so what are we getting? We are now getting this Hussein right here inside our terminal, which is super amazing. So now let me just cut there from here and grab the rest of them. So I'm gonna just write like, or let me just duplicate that a few times, change that to the last name, change this one to the email, and change this one to the password. Okay, so I'm going to also change this one to the last name or lowercase last name, and this one to the email, and this one to the password. Save my file, and if I log all of them to the console, like console.log of first name, and duplicate that, then we have the last name, then we have the email, and finally we have the password right here. Save my file, and now let me just rerun that. Oh my god, if I can rerun that today. And now let me just refresh that. It's taking a lot of time, but now let me provide like Hussein, and then webdev and Hussein at gmail.com, Hussein12. And now if I click on the sign in, and here you can see we are now getting the first name, last name, email, and also the password right here, which is amazing. So now let me just delete that from here, and now we have to specify the check. If we don't have the first name, if the user did not specify the first name, or if they did not specify the last name, or they did not specify the email, or they did not specify the password, so we just want to throw this new error. Okay, so we just want to write like, please fill all fields. Okay, so now let me just save my file, and now let me just show you there right here. Let's just refresh there, and I'm not going to even fill any of the fields. So if I just sign in, we are now getting this error right here. And what are we getting? We are now getting like, please fill all the fields. Okay, so this is that error which we are already specifying right here. Okay, so that's cool, but now the next thing which you have to do is that we have to connect to our database. So I'm going to just write like connect db, and now let me just execute that right here. And next we have to search for the existing user. Okay, so if the user already existed, then we have to do something about that. So const user, or you can give it the name of like existing user, and it's going to be equals to aware. And now let me grab my user model, and then we have to write the, what do we call it, the find one method, which is a mongoose method, by the way. And if you guys don't know what a mongoose is, you're gonna have to watch my MongoDB and mongoose course. Okay, so now let me just provide my email right here. And yeah, if we already have the existing user, so what do you want to do in that case? We just want to throw new error, and it will just say like user already exists. So currently we don't have any users inside our database, so that's why we cannot see anything, but we will check that a bit later. So that's there. Now there will be a problem and I'm gonna show you that problem in a few seconds, but first of all I want to just write like await user.create method, and I'm gonna have to specify my first name, the last name, the email, and also the password. And the problem is that password, and we will address that error in a few seconds. So now let me just write like console.log of user created successfully. There we go. And not a heart emoji, what the hell. Let's just remove that. And now we have to redirect the user to the login page. Okay, so if the user is successfully created, so we are going to be grabbing this redirect from this next navigation right here. Okay, so the problem is this password. And why are we providing a first name, last name, email, and password? The reason is they're users, so we need the first name, the last name, the email, and the password. So that's what we are now providing right here. Like these stuff are required, like required, and we're not going to be storing this one. I mean, like we will store the credential of the user inside our database. We are not going to be storing their password, which is coming from some sort of a provider like the Google provider, or what do we call it, god damn it, Gmail provider or something like that. So now let me just save that, and now let me just save my file and let's try it out. So before I do, I'm going to just open that, and now let me just remove. Oh, we don't have anything inside there. It will just create this right here. So it will just create this auth testing, which we are now specifying right here. Oh, you know what, my auth would be fine, or next auth would be fine. I'm going to give it the name of like next auth. You can give it like any name that you like for your database. So what I'm going to do is that first of all I'm going to have to specify my first name, so which will be Hossein. And then we have a web dev and hossein@gmail.com, and hossein12 will be my password. You know, I'm gonna just click on that. So I'm gonna click on the sign up, and there we go. We now successfully register our user, and we are now totally redirected to login page right here. But now I'm going to just refresh there, and here you can see we are now getting our next auth right here inside our compass. So now let me just click on there, then I'm going to click on the users, and now inside the users we have one user right here which we just created. So if I click on there, and here you can see we have the user ID, then we have the first name, last name, email, and password. That's not something that we want. So I want you to imagine, like, let's suppose, God forbid, if some hacker hack our database and they want to steal the user credentials, so they can totally see the user email and they can also see the user password. And not even a hacker. Let's suppose we are working with the Google headquarters, and I decided to check like all of the users credentials. Let's suppose my friend name is Eric. I just ran a query and I want to figure out his password, so I can totally see the password right here. And this is not something that we want, so we have to hash this password, which means like we have to provide some sort of a salt to this password so that nobody will be able to steal the user password. Okay, so how in the world we are going to be doing that? First we have to delete this table right here. So users, okay, so that's successfully gone, and now we have to install something called the bcrypt.js. npm install bcrypt crypt.js, yeah, bcrypt.js, and we have to import one function from there, which is a hash function. Okay, so I'm going to just write like const, and let's just grab the hash from where, from the bcrypt.js. So now if I save my file, and I already installed a declaration file for that, but if that's giving you an error, so you're gonna have to install the declaration files for that. So the next thing which I want to do is that I want to hash this password before I want to store the inside our database. So now let me just hash this. So const hashed password, and it's going to be equals to await, and then this hash password. And now let me just provide my actual password, which we are now getting from the users. Like I'm copying this password and I'm placing that right here. Now let me provide a comma, and you can provide the salt like 10 or 12 or how many that you like. And next, instead of providing a password, we are going to be providing the hash password, which we are now hashing right here. And now if I create a user, like let me just create some sort of a user, let me just go ahead and create that user, and I cannot do that because I have to run my server once again. And here you can see I have my register page right here. Let's just refresh that. And for the first name, I'm going to specify like Hossein. For the last name, I'm going to specify like webdev hossein@gmail.com, and hossein12 will be my password. Now if I click on a sign in, so it's going to redirect us to the login page. And now let me just go ahead and check this out, baby. Yeah, this one. So I'll just refresh there. So we have a users, and now inside there we have one user, and guess what, the password is looking hash. And this is exactly that we want. So now we can successfully create our user. And yeah, let me just create a few more users before I log in. So I'll just create like Jordan and Peterson, Jordan@gmail.com, and Jordan12. And I'm gonna also register one of my favorite friend, which will be a mango and fruit, mango@gmail.com, mango12. and bang, this is how we are going to be registering a users inside our database. And now if I refresh that, so we have a 3 entries. We have a Jordan, password is hash, and then we have the mango and the password is totally hash. So now that we are totally done with how we are going to be registering our user, but now let's talk about how we are going to be authorizing our user. Okay, so if I click on this getting started button, inside this authentication we have our credentials right here, and the documentations are super awful. Okay, so first of all we are gonna have to import these credentials, and then we have to execute them. We have to pass our object, and then we have to pass all of their stuff right here, and then we have an authorize function which allows us to check whether the user is a correct user or incorrect user. So now let me just show you that. So the first thing which I want to do is that I'm gonna go ahead and go to my auth. Okay, so which is this auth.js file which you can see right here. So now we have to import our credentials. Okay, so credentials, there we go. So we're going to be grabbing there from the next auth, then the providers, and then the credentials. And I just made the first letter as uppercase. If you want to do that, you totally can, but you don't have to. And now inside these providers, first of all we have to provide there, and we have to execute there, and now inside these credentials we have to specify our object right here. And now for this object we are going to have to provide some sort of a name for our provider, like which kind of provider we are currently working on. So I'm going to just pass like credentials. You can pass anything that you like. Okay, so that's that. Now let me provide a comma here, and here we're going to be passing something for our default sign-in page. So I'm going to just specify like credentials right here. Come on, credentials, and here we're going to be just passing like email. And by the way, I'm going to show you where to find that in a few seconds. So now let me just provide a label, and the label will be set to email, and I'm going to also provide a type for that. So the type will be also set to an email. And now let me provide like the password, and the password will be a label, and let me just provide like password. There we go. And the type will be also set to password. So as soon as I save this file, my server is running. And now let me just check this out. So I'm gonna have to go ahead and go to first of all the local host of 3000, then we have to write a slash, and then we have to go to the API, then slash, then the auth, then slash, then the sign, come on, sign, and then in, like API auth sign in, and then we have to hit enter. So what are we getting? We are now getting our email and also our password. So where in the world is this email and password coming from? This email and password is coming from this area which you can see right here. So we are now specifying these credentials, and we want the email, and we also want the password right here. So anytime I provide something inside there, it's going to give us an error. Okay, because we did not specify our credential provider, so that's why. So if I just specify like Hussein, come on, or you know what, or not Jordan, but something at gmail.com, and then some password. So if I click on that, it's going to give us an error because we did not set up something called the authorize function, which I just show you right here. Okay, so here you can see we have to specify this authorize function. We have to check whether the user is authenticated, like authorized or not. Okay, and to do that, we're going to have to first of all create this function. So now underneath these credentials, what do you want to do? We just want to specify our authorize function right here. So authorize, and it's going to instantly gives us an error. So we have to provide our asynchronous function, and we have to pass our credentials, credentials. And now we have to pass our arrow function right here. But if I just write like return user, like some sort of a, like return something, okay, so as soon as I do that error will be gone. So I'm gonna have to return like something, and here you can see that error is now successfully gone. So which means like we have to return something from there in order to remove this error. We are gonna do that in a few seconds, but first of all we need the email. So we need like const email is gonna be coming from the credentials, which we are already passing right here as a parameter. So I'm gonna have to copy that and place that right here, and we only want to get the email as a string or undefined. Like the user can be a string or undefined. And now let me just duplicate that, and we can also get the password from the credentials as well. Okay, so now let me just save that, and now let me just check if we don't have the email or we don't have the password. So what do you want to do in that case? We just want to throw new credentials error right here. So credentials, come on, cred. There we go. So we have to provide this credential sign in function right here. You can provide throw new error, you can provide like throw new auth error, you can specify anything, but this one will just give us a bit readable message right here. So I'll just write like, please provide both email and password right here. Okay, so if that's not the case, so underneath that we also have to connect to our database. So I'll just write like connect db, and now underneath there we are going to be checking for the existing user. Okay, so let's just write like const user, and it's going to be equals to await and then user model, which we've already created, and we are going to be using the find one mongoose method right here one more time. We are going to be checking for a unique email. Okay, so let's just provide a select statement, and here we are going to be passing the password, like we're not going to be storing the password and also the row. Okay, so that's them. And if we don't have that user, so what do you want to do in that case? We just want to throw the new credentials error. Come on, let me just copy this credentials site. I can't even spell that. And now let me just pass the cause right here, like what is causing this error. So we just want to write like invalid email or password. There we go. You can also just specify like error, throw new error, and I can just say like invalid email or password, and that's cool. But now we also have to search for the user password, like if the user did not specify the password. So what do you want to do in that case? Like user.password. So what do you want to do in that case? But we have to make that as a lowercase password, and I'm going to just copy this entire thing, and now let me just place there, and yeah, I guess that's gonna be fine. And now we have to compare our password. Here in this case, let me just show you that inside the actions we hash our password right here, which you can see like we hash our password, which means like we provide some sort of a salt to there, which also means that our password currently looks something like this. So now we can remember this, neither we can remember this password nor our users can remember this password. So we have to make this password as our old password, like Hossein12. Okay, so how in the world we are going to be doing that? And to do that, for that we are going to be using something called the compare method. So we are going to be using like const is matched, and it's going to be equals to await, and then we have to use our compare method. We are going to be grabbing that from the bcrypt. And now let me just pass first of all the password, which we are already grabbing from the credentials, which you can see right here. We have to first of all provide this password, and then the next thing which you have to do is that we have to provide the user.password right here. Okay, and now let me just provide one more check for the final one. So is match password, so we just want to provide this. So I'm going to just copy that, and now let me just place that right here. And now let's just use our invalid, or you know what, that was fine. Yeah, that was, or password matched. Password did not match or something. And finally, if all of their checks are complete, so we have to create the user data. It's going to be equals to this data right here. So we have to first of all provide a first name. We are now getting the user dot first name right here. Now let me provide a comma, then we have a last name, and last name will be set to user dot last name. And we also have to specify the email, and email will be user dot email. And also we have to specify the role but not the password, because we already checked that. And then we have the id, user dot id. So now we are storing all of that data right here. So we are going to be passing that to a session in a few seconds. But first of all, we have to return this user data right here. Okay, so if I return that, save my file, and here you can see that authorized error is also totally gone. So that's cool, but I'm gonna have to restart every single thing because we did a lot of changes inside our auth.js file. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh this page. And here now in this case, if I just specify like not Hussein but gibberish@gmail.com and gibberish12, and now if I click on the sign in, and here you can see it's gonna give us that error right here. But if I refresh that one more time, and if I specify my own credential, like my valid credentials, so I'm gonna just write like Hussein@gmail.com and Hussein12, and I'm going to also go ahead and go to my application, and then I'm gonna go to the cookies, and here you can see we don't have any cookies right here. We only have these two right here. But if I click on there, it's gonna also set these cookies, and we now successfully log in. So that's why it redirected us to the login page right here. And here you can also see my cookies right here. So this is how we are going to be working with the credentials provider by using the auth.js. So you know what, let me just summarize that. First of all, we have to grab the credentials provider from the auth.js, then we have to execute that, we have to give some sort of a name for that, and then for our default page we have to specify the email and password. If you want to provide like more roles, you totally can, but in my case email and password will do. Then we have to authorize our user, like we have to specify some sort of a credentials which the user is going to be providing right here inside. You know, let me just remove that from here, delete that, and then let me just refresh that. Let me go ahead and go to the API auth, and then we have to go to the sign in. Okay, so which the user is going to be providing right here. So we are now getting the user email and also the password, and we are now checking if the user did not specify either the email or the password, so we are going to be throwing this error. And then finally we are just connecting to our database, and we are checking for the user, a unique user, and then we are checking if we don't have the user, so we are going to be throwing to the user like invalid email or password. If we don't have the password, so we are going to be showing to the user like invalid or email or password, and yeah, vice versa. And then we are just checking the password, like in this case we are now hashing the password of the user, and now in this case we are now comparing that hash password with the actual user password which the user is going to be providing right here in this input field. Okay, so that's that. And if the where is where was I? There we go. So if the password is not matched, so we are going to be just writing like so we are going to be showing to the user like password did not match. If the password is matched and all of that steps are totally correct, so we are going to be just storing or sending this data to the user like first name, last name, email, role, and password, and ID, not password but ID, and it's gonna set there inside our cookies. So that's why whenever we return this data, so that data will be stored inside these cookies right here which you just saw. So now they will learn about how we are going to be registering the user and how we can log in the specific user. But to be honest, I don't like their built-in login page. So if I want to use my own, like let me just go ahead and use my own. So how in the world we are going to be doing that? But there is a bit catch. If I want to go to my API auth and then the sign in, I can totally go there, but I want to prevent that from happening. I only want my user to go into my own login page, not the ugly one. So how in the world we are going to be doing that? Well, to do that, first of all we have to go ahead and go to the auth, and we have to just provide the flag which is called the pages, and inside there we are going to be using the sign in, and we just have to set there to our own login page right here. Okay, so now let me just save that, and this login page is this login page which we've already created right here. Okay, so that's that. And now let me just refresh that right here. But now if I try to go into the API auth and then the sign in, and here you can see it's going to just redirect us to this login page right here. That's done. But now the next which you have to do is that we have to log in our specific user. We're going to have to go ahead and go to our user action, which you can see right here. So we have an action. Inside this action we have a users right here. So up above this register, I'm gonna go ahead and create my login right here. So login, and it's gonna be equals to the asynchronous function, and it's gonna also tag the form data. And now let me just provide my form data right here. So the first thing which I want to do is that I want to get the email from the form data. Come on, not this one but the form data, and we want to use the get method on there, and we are going to be grabbing the email as a string. Now let me just duplicate that, and I'm going to change that to the password as well, and I'm going to also change this one to the password as well. Okay, so that's that. But now let me just use my try and catch block. For the catch block, I'm going to just write like const my or some error. You can give it any name that you like, and I'm going to just change that to like error as credential sign in error. So error, basically it's going to give us like a better version of our error. Okay, so now let's just return like some error, and then we are going to be using the cause which we've already specified in our backend logic. So now for a try block, we are going to be using like await and then sign in, and here we have to specify like by which thing you want to sign in, like which provider you want to use. So if you want to use like a Google, so you just have to provide your Google. If you want to use like GitHub, or if you want to use like OnlyFans or whatever you have. Okay, so in my case I'm going to be using this credential right here because I already specified the name of these credentials, and I'm going to make that as a lowercase. Okay, so now inside there we have to first of all prevent the redirect from happening. So I'm going to just write like redirect, and I'm going to set that to false. And by the way, we also have to import that right here. So sign in, and we are going to be importing that from the auth. Okay, so now we have to provide a redirect of false. I'm going to also provide a callback. Come on, yeah, callback, and callback URL will be now set to the home page. Okay, and now we have to specify the email and the password which we are getting from the user. Like we have the email and also the password right here. And finally we have to export our what do we call it, server actions. Now let me just provide a comma and export that right here, and now let's just use that inside our login page. There we go. So now if I want to use that, here you can see I have an email and I also have the password right here. So now if I want to use that, I'm gonna go ahead and just write an action right here, and for the action we are going to be using our login, and we are going to be getting that from the action and user, which you can see right here. Okay, so now let me just save my file, and I'm going to just restart everything from scratch. I'm gonna right click on there and go to the inspect element, and then I'm going to go into the application, and here we have a session of cookies. And now let me just provide like hussein@gmail.com and hussein12. Now if I click on the login, guess what? We've got some sort of an error, and I faced this error like 1,000 times while I was building that project, which you will see in a day or two. So I faced this error like a lot, like 1,000 times. So the reason is, here you can say specify the name, and I set that to name, but we don't want that. We want that to be email. Okay, so now if I save my file, and it was giving us a null value, and null cannot be passed to the server component from the client component to the server component, so that's why we were getting that error. So now let me just refresh that, and now if I just use like hussein@gmail.com and hussein@gmail, come on, hussein12. Okay, so if I click on that, here you can see we are getting our session, but we are not redirected to anywhere. And why is that? That's because we are now setting that. Come on, where is that? Oh, here. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go to the top, and that's because we are now setting the redirect to false, so that's why we did not redirect it to anywhere. So now if I want to redirect my user to the home page, so I'm going to be just using like redirect, and now let me just redirect my user to the home page. So now let me just save that. As soon as I refresh my page, still I'm inside this home page, I'm like this login page right here, and I already log in my user, and this is something called protecting the routes. So we are going to be protecting our routes in a few seconds, but I'm going to have to delete this user from here. Now let me just refresh that, and now if I just log in by using that same credentials, okay, so if I log in, now it will redirect us to the home page right here, and the reason is this redirect. So yeah, this is how we are going to be logging in our users if you already have them. Okay, so we cannot log out no, we cannot log out the user because we did not implement that functionality. Now let me just right click on that and delete that from here and refresh that. So now that we learned about how we are going to be registering the user and how we are going to be logging in their user, but now it's time to learn about the GitHub provider and also the Google provider. Okay, so to do that, first of all, I'm going to be starting with the GitHub provider. So I want you to go ahead and go to your own GitHub account, and I'm going to just click on my profile, and then I'm going to click on the settings. So once I click on the settings, and here you can see I have this developer settings right here. I'm going to click on there, and then I'm going to click on the OAuth app right here. If you already have some OAuth IDs, so you're going to see that right here, but in my case I did not create any of them so that's why I don't have that. So I'm going to just click on register new application. You can give it any name that you like, so I'm going to just give it the name of like I don't know, my dash, or you know, my auth app right here. So in your case you should provide your own actual application name right here, and then for the homepage URL I'm going to just specify like HTTP, because we're not in the production mode, so I'm going to just specify like a local host of 3000. But if you already have some sort of a domain like HTTPS and then like I don't know, Hussein ai.com or something like that, so you can totally specify that. But in my case I don't have any domain, so I'm gonna have to specify this local host right here. Okay, so now for the authorization callback, so I'm gonna go ahead and go to the auth.js, and I'm going to just search for the provider. So let me just click on the guides, and not a guides but the getting started right here. So I'm going to go to the what do we call it, the OAuth right here. So if I click on the GitHub, here you can see this is the URL we have to specify right here. So first of all you have to specify the origin, and the origin is this origin right here. So I'm going to copy and place it right here. Then we have to write this URL, so I'm going to copy that from here, and now let me just place that right here, and then I'm going to click on the register application. You can provide a description if you wanted to, but in my case I'm not going to. So I'm going to hide my API key and also the client secret as well, but I'm gonna just copy that from here. Say bye-bye to this one, and I'm gonna just go ahead and go to my .env file, and here I'm gonna give it the name of like GitHub client ID, and it's gonna be equals to that client ID which I just copied. So now let me just save that. Now I'm going to just click on generate a new secret. So once I click on there, and here you can see it's going to generate that new secret for me right here. So I can totally copy that. And now let me just use like GitHub client secret. It's going to be equals to that secret which I just copied. So now let me just save that. So this is how we are going to be generating our client ID. I mean like our GitHub client ID and our GitHub secret. So now let me just close that, and I will found this GitHub right here. So here you can see I have this form, and I'm going to just specify the action right here. And I'm not going to be creating any separate action for that because this is a small action, so I don't have to create a separate file for that. So I'm going to be using like asynchronous function, and then inside there we have to just use our use server because this is a server action, and we have to use just await and then the sign in. Okay, so whenever I write a sign in, and here we have to specify the sign in name. So I'm going to just write like GitHub right here in this case, and that's all which you have to do. So now let me just save that. We also changed something inside the .env file, so we are going to have to restart our server from scratch. So now let me just refresh that, and now if I click on this GitHub, okay, so we are now getting some sort of GRTHUB. Oh, that's because we are getting the sign in from the React. We don't want that. I'm gonna have to get my sign in from my auth. Okay, so now if I save my file, and now let me just go ahead and refresh that, and now if I click on the GitHub, so here you can see it's gonna redirect us to the API, then auth, and then the sign in, but we did not set up our auth right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my GitHub first of all. So now let me just import the GitHub, and now let's just import them. I'm gonna make it as uppercase. And now underneath this provider or up above these credentials, we are going to be just passing our GitHub right here. So now let me just pass the GitHub, and now inside there I'm going to first of all specify client ID and process, come on, process process.env, and then we have our GitHub client ID, and then we have a secret. So we have a client secret, and it's going to be equals to the process.env, and then GitHub client secret, like that. So now let me just save my file. I'm gonna also provide a comma here, and now let me just save my file, and finger cross if I click on this GitHub, and it's gonna redirect us to this page right here, and here you can specify your email and password, and it's gonna successfully log you in. I'm not going to because I don't have any spare account, so yeah, I'm sorry about that. If you want to provide your own email and also your password, the GitHub email and password, so it's gonna log you in. Okay, so yeah, that's cool. So that was the first one, and now let's talk about the Google. So the first thing which I want you to do is that I want you to go ahead and go to the console.cloud.google.com and then click on the select a project. So once you do that, then I want you to click on this new project. So once you do that, here you have to specify some sort of a name for your project, like my auth project or something like that. And now I'm going to just click on the create. I'm going to click on this navigation menu, and then I'm going to go to the API and services, and inside this API and services we have our credentials right here. So I'm going to click on that, and here I'm going to click on the create a credentials, and then I'm going to choose this OAuth client ID right here. So once I choose that, then we have to configure the constant screen. So I'm going to just click on there. I click on this credential one more time, and now I'm going to click on this create credentials and click on the OAuth client ID. And here we have to specify the type, like finally we have to specify the web application because we are building web application, and I'm gonna just give it the name of like my own app or something like that. And for the authorized JavaScript origin, we're not going to specify anything to that, but for the authorized redirect URL, we have to specify this URL right here, which is our localhost origin. Then we have to specify our API auth callback, and then Google finally. Okay, so finally let me just click on this create. And when that's done, so here you can see it's going to give me a client ID. It's going to also give me a client secret. So I'm going to hide that from you guys because I know there will be a lot of people who wants to steal my data. And trust me, this is not even my Gmail account. This is one of my friend's Gmail account. But now I'm going to go ahead and go to my .env file one more time. And I'm going to just write like Google, and then client ID, and also Google client secret. Okay, so now let me provide the equal to signs right here. First of all, I'm going to copy the client ID. Now let me just place that right here. Then I'm going to copy the client secret. Now let me just place that right here, save my file, and I'm going to close that. Next, we have to grab our, what do we call it, Google right here. And I'm going to make that as a uppercase Google. And now let me just provide that right here. So we are going to be using our Google. And now inside this Google, first of all, we are going to be providing that ID, client ID. And I'm going to also provide like client secret, and It's going to be equals to process.env and Google client secret, like that. And finally, let me provide my comma here to save my file. And yeah, now let me just use my server action right here. So just like this one, I'm gonna copy this entire thing from here. So now let me just copy that from here, and I'm gonna go to my another form. Now let me just place it right here, but instead of providing this GitHub, I'm gonna just change that to the Google right here in lowercase Google. So now let me just save my file. I'm gonna have to restart my application because I changed a lot of things in the .env file. And now let me just refresh that. Now let me click on this Google. So now let me just click on that. And here you can see sign in to the Hosan. And then here you can specify your email, and you can click on the next, and you can also specify your password if you wanted to, and stuff like that. So I'm not going to, I'm going to just remove that from here. And yeah, this is how we are going to be providing the Google provider, and this is how we are going to be providing the GitHub provider. So now that we learn about the GitHub provider, the Google provider, and also the credential provider, and now it's time to protect our routes. So the first thing which I want to do is that I want to go ahead and go to my not auth, but login page. Now I'm inside a login page. The first thing which I want to do is that I want to get my session. It's going to be equals to await and then my auth. And we're going to be getting this auth from our auth file right here. Okay, so now if I just log that to the console like something like that, and now let me just pass my session right here, save my file, and now let me just run there right here. So npm run dev, and watch what happens. I'm now inside my home page, and currently we don't see anything. But now if I click on the login, it's gonna give us an undefined right here, or not undefined, it's gonna give us a null right here. But if I just right click on there and go to my inspect element, if I go to my application right here, and currently we don't have any session or nothing like that. So if I just log in as a valid user like jordan@gmail.com and jordan12, and now let me just click on there. Here you can see this is my session right here, and here you can also see we are still getting a null. That's because we are not going into that login. So if I just go to the login, and if I hit enter right here, and now what are we getting? We are now getting the user, which you can see right here, and we are also getting the expiries right here. But we don't want that. We also want to get the role and also the ID of the user. So how in the world we are going to be doing that? Let me just show you how we are going to be doing that. So the first thing which I want to do is that I want to go to the auth, and I'm going to just go to the bottom underneath these pages. And why am I writing a callbacks? That's because I wanted to configure, or I wanted to change the existing behavior of my session. Okay, so this is going to be an asynchronous function, and now let me provide a session, and come on, session SESSIO, and goddammit, and then also the token. Okay, so now inside there we are going to be checking if our token, if you already have a token.sub, this sub is a property which is already available inside the token. So if we already have that, and if you already have the token dot role, okay, so what do you want to do in that case? Role. So what do you want to do in that case? We just want to provide like a session dot user dot id, and it's going to be equals to the token dot sub. And now the next thing which you have to do is that we have to write a session dot user dot role, and it's going to be equals to token dot role right here. And now finally, outside from this if statement, we are going to be just returning the session. There we go. Okay, so once I return that, so this is how we are going to be configuring our own session. And now underneath that, we also have to provide our JWT or JSON Web Tokens. You don't have to worry about what a JSON Web Token is, but this is just a necessary step we have to specify when we are changing the existing session. Okay, so we have to specify the token and also the user, and we just have to check for the user. If you already have the user, so then we just have to write like token.role, and it's going to be equals to user.role. Okay, so now outside from that, we just have to return our token. There we go. So now let me just save this file. And underneath this JWT, what do you have to do? We also have to change the existing behavior of the sign in as well. So how in the world we are going to be doing that? We want to get the user and also the account. Okay, so we just want to get both of their two things, and you want to check if the account dot provider is triple equals to Google, or if somebody wants to create their account by using the Google provider. So we are going to be using a try and catch block, and for the catch block, I'll just say like throw new error, and I'm gonna just say like error, error while creating user or something like that. Now for the try block, we are going to be first of all accessing the user. Okay, so which we are already grabbing right here. So from this user, you would need a few things. We would need the user email, also the name, the image, which is totally optional, and their ID. Okay, so now finally we have to just connect to our database by using this connectdb method, which we've, like function which we've already defined. And then we have to check for the already existing one. So like if you already have the user, so we just have to use like await user.find one, which is a mongoose method. And now let me just provide my email right here. And now underneath there, if we don't have already existing user, like already existing user, so what do you want to do? We just want to write like user.create, and we have to just provide like email, name, image, and also the provider ID, and it's going to be set to the ID. Let me just check out my user, and here you can see auth provider ID. I'm going to have to copy that, and now let me just place that right here, auth provider ID. And now if that's not the case, we just have to return true. Okay, so yeah, that's cool. Now underneath this catch statement, we're going to have to define our own final one. Okay, so I'm going to just write like account, and if the provider they are using is GitHub, or not GitHub but credentials, so what do you want to do? We just want to return true, and otherwise we just have to return false. Okay, so now let me just save that, go back, and that's everything that we have to do for now. And I guess this is totally done. So now the next thing which I want to do, I want to see the session one more time. Okay, so I'm going to just restart every single thing from scratch, and I'm going to also go ahead and remove that from here and refresh them. So initially it's going to give us that null right here, but if I provide my own credential like hossein@gmail.com, hossein12, now let me just click on the login. So it's going to just set my session, and let me just go ahead and go to the login one more time. And here you can see we are now getting the email, we are also getting the ID, and we are also getting the role right here, which is currently set to the user. So which is amazing. But now you want to get the user right here from this session. So we are going to be just using like session.user. If you already have the session, then you want to get like the user. And now let me just save that. And here you can see this how we are going to be getting the user email, the ID of the user, and also the user role as well. So by using this information, now let me just remove that from here. I'm going to just write like user and then session. If you already have the user inside our session, so what do you want to do? We just want to check for the user if you already have this session available. So we just want to redirect the user to the home page, nothing else than that, and we don't want that. Let's just remove all of that. So we are going to be getting that from the next navigation. There we go. So now let me just save my file, and finger crossed. So now let me just refresh that. And now here you can see I already logged in, and now I'm going to try to access my login page. So login, and if I hit enter, I cannot do that. I can click on the login, and I cannot do that. It's gonna just redirect me to the home page. I can go ahead and go to the register page. It's gonna show me the register page, but as soon as I click on the login, it's gonna redirect me to the home page right here, which is super amazing. So this is how we are going to be protecting our login. And now let me just go ahead, or instead of using the auth, I'm gonna go ahead and create a session for myself, like a get session function. So I'm gonna just write like get session.ts. You don't have to do that. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to do that. But what do you call it? But this is just a better practice to do that. If you don't want to do that, like totally, you don't have to. So I am doing that because it's just a better practice. So I have to just write there. I have to get my auth from my auth, and then we have to get a cache. Let me just get that from where? From the React.js. Okay, and also we have to export const get session sion is going to be equals to that cache which we are already importing. And now we have to just provide our asynchronous function. Once again, you don't have to do that if you don't want to do that. Okay, so we are going to be using like auth, and then we have to just return our session right here. And now let me just change that to the const. There we go. So now let me just save my file, and instead of using that auth, which I'm using right now, right here, right now, I'm going to just remove that, and I'm going to just change that to a get session, not selection, session. There we go. And I'm going to get that from my session. So now let me just execute that, save my file, and yeah, you can totally use the session if you wanted to, or you can use the auth. Okay, so that's that. Let's just try it out. So if I click on the login one more time, still it is not letting me. So yeah, that's cool. Now I'm gonna go ahead and go to the register page as well, like register, come on, register, which is this register page right here. So I also want to protect this one if I already log in. So what I want to do is that I want to use that same code, like, and let's just redirect the user to the home page. Let's just save our file, check them out, and here you can see we are already inside a home page. So now if I click on the register, we are not able to do that. If I click on the login, still we are not able to do that. Now let me just take care of the dashboard. And dashboard, you guys already know, is a private. Okay, so we have to provide a bit more security to that. So I'm gonna go ahead and go to the dashboard. Let's just go to the top, and now here the home page. By the way, this should be an asynchronous function like so, and we have to get the redirect from the next. And now if I click on the dashboard, still, oh, we can access the dashboard. That's because we already log in. We log in, so that's why we can totally access this dashboard right here. But if you don't have the user credentials, like if you don't log in, so see, this is not gonna apply here. So if I go ahead and go to my auth, and let's just delete that, and I'm going to just refresh, and bang, we are now inside a home page. If I click on the dashboard, this is totally protected. If I click on the register, this is totally accessible because we remove the user credentials. And now if I click on the login, still accessible. If I just log in as like hussein@gmail.com one more time, hussein12, and then I'm going to click on this dashboard, and it will work totally fine. So now let me just click on this dashboard, and here you can see we are now getting our dashboard right here. So now that we protected the dashboard route, login and register, now it's time to protect the settings, which is underneath the private. First of all, let me just write like session, and it's, come on, session, and it's going to be equals to await, and then get session. And now let's get there. It's going to be an asynchronous component because we have to use the await inside there, and then we have to get the user, and then if we have the session.user, then what do you want to do in that case? We just want to redirect the user to, like, if we don't have the user, and now let's just write like return redirect the user to login page. But if that's not the case, let me just get that right here. But if that's not the case, we want to check for the user role. If the user role is not equals to an admin, so now let me just write an admin. So what do you want to do in that case? We just want to redirect the user to the private, come on, private, and then the dashboard. There we go. So now let me just save my file. But now the next thing which I want to do is that I want to fetch all of the users. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my action, and now inside this action I want to fetch all of the users. Const fetch all users, and it's going to be equals to an asynchronous component. First of all, let me just use await connect to database, and then underneath that we have to get the users by using await, and then the user model dot find, and we want to get all of the users. Okay, and then we have to just return all of the users right here. So now let's just save there, and I'm gonna go ahead and render there right here. I didn't export that, so I'm going to have to export that first of all by providing a comma, save my file, and now let's just use fetch all users, and now this it will allow us to fetch all of the users. So now I'm gonna copy there, and let's just remove that from here, and I'm gonna be using like all users. And now let's just iterate over through all of them by using this map method, and we are going to be getting the user, and for each user we want to render the tr. And now I'm going to also provide the key of like user and then a specific user ID, and now inside them I'm going to also write a td. Okay, so td will just first of all render the user dot first name. Okay, and now let me provide a td of like some sort of come on class name is going to be equals to pairing for all around will be set to 2 pixel. Okay, so I'm going to also write a last name, and now underneath there I'm going to be also creating one more td. So let's just write a td and close them. I'm going to also provide a classes of pairing for all around will be set to 2, and inside there we have to create our form. And now inside this form we are going to be rendering one button, so I'll just write like button, and it will just say like delete. I'm going to style that in a few seconds, but first of all let me just save my file, and I'm going to go ahead and go to first of all the private, come on, private, and then the settings. Okay, so it's going to give us an error right here, and get session, oh, we don't need that from the next auth. Let me just remove that from, oh, you know, let me just remove this entire thing, like import get session, and we want to get that from the lib and get session right here. So now if I save my file, and now let me just run there, and if I go to like private and then settings. So here you can see it's going to redirect us to the login page right here, which is amazing. But I want to log in first of all by someone else, like jordan@gmail.com and jordan12. And now let me just click on login. So here you can see it's going to successfully log in. But if I try to access like private and settings, it's going to redirect me to the dashboard, not to the settings component. Why is that? If the user role is not equal to admin, then redirect the user to the private dashboard, which you can see right here. Okay, so yeah, now I'm going to go ahead and make one user as a admin user. So I'm going to just write like admin for myself right here. So by default it is now currently set to like user. I'm going to change that to like admin. Come on, admin. And now let me just save my file, and now I am successfully in admin. So now let me just run that, and I'm gonna also right click on there and delete my session. I'm gonna go to that application, and let's just remove that from here. And now let me just refresh that, and yep, that's running. And now I'm going to go ahead and log in as Hossein, who is an admin. So I'm gonna just write like hossein@gmail.com and hossein12 as my password. So now let me just click on there. And now if I want to go to that settings, so I can totally go to the private and settings, and here you can see I have all of their users information right here. So I can delete the user if I wanted to. So if I want to delete a specific user, so you know what, let me just provide that functionality right here. So first of all, let me just style their button right here. So I'll just write like, let me go inside the form, and I'm going to provide my action. This is a smaller action, so I don't have to do anything crazy. So I'm going to go ahead and just write like use server, and then underneath that we are going to be using await and then the user model, and find by ID, and come on, and delete. This is the method in Mongoose. So now we want to get the user ID. First of all, we have to even grab our user from our model. And now let me just refresh that, and if I click on delete, and it's going to delete the user right here. So I'm going to take care of this navigation area, and yeah, that's going to be the end of it. So what I want to do is that I want to go to my navigation. So let's just go ahead and go to navigation, which you can see right here. So the first thing which I want to do is that I want to mark this as an asynchronous component, and now inside there we are going to be also checking the session, and let's just use await and then get session. Okay, right here. And I'm gonna also get the user from the session. And if you already have the user, then what do you want to do in that case? Okay, so now let me just save this file, and now I am going to come here, and first of all I'm going to be checking for a user. If you don't have the user, so what do you want to do in that case? Okay, so in that case we want to cut this li and also the register. Okay, so I'm going to cut that from here, and now let me just place that right here. I'm going to also wrap that in the React fragment, so I'm going to cut that from here. I'm going to also place it right here. And if that's not the case, what do you want to do in that case? We just want to cut this dashboard and also this logout button. Oh, I also forgot to include what do we call it, that logout right here. So now let me just place that, and we are getting an error because we have to wrap that inside of React fragments. And now let me just wrap that right here. Okay, so now let me just take care of this form. You're not going to be doing anything crazy, but I'm going to just write like action. Come on, action. God damn it. And now let's just provide our asynchronous function, and let's just mark it as use server. And now underneath that we have to use like sign out. Okay, sign out and execute that. So now if I save my file, and we are still getting some sort of error. Okay, so get session is coming from the React once again. What the hell? We don't want that. I'm going to go ahead and go to my lib folder, and we have our get session right here. Save my file, and we're not going to be getting that from. Okay, so I'll just select that right here. I'm going to provide a curly braces right here. Save my file. If I click on this logout button right here, I'm going to just click on that. So here you can see it's going to give us that login and also the register. I can click on the login right here. I can click on the register. And now if I want to like log in, so I'll just log in as someone else, like jordan@gmail.com and then jordan12. And whenever I log in, here you can see we are now getting this dashboard right here. I don't know why we are getting this spaces right here. So I'll just go ahead and provide a bit of margin for the top of 5 pixel, and not that cool. So I'll just write 2 maybe. Yeah, now that's looking better. So I can click on the dashboard, so I can totally go to your dashboard. And now this user is not an admin. So if I try to go to the settings, it will not let me. Okay, so yeah, that was the entire flow of auth. Okay, and I hope you enjoyed it. So if I click on the logout, then I can go ahead and go to the register. I can register the user, By providing this credential, I can go to a login and I can log in as my own credentials, or I can log in as a GitHub user or a Google user. Okay, so yeah, that was it about for this course, and I hope you like it. And if you do, so feel free to subscribe to the channel. And if you have any other ideas about any other courses, so I'll be more than happy to help you out. Stay happy, love you all.